Good afternoon, everybody. It's Thursday, February 6, 2025, and I've got all of the stories for your rush hour ride home. On today's episode, we'll be discussing bird flu. Did it jump to the beef industry? Oh boy, cheap eggs, cheap beef are gone. Also, Super Bowl updates. We'll have some words from the press conference, what the Eagles players, what the Chiefs players are saying, as we're a few days away from that showdown. Also, some updates in the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni court case, one of which is uncovering a conversation about Colleen Hoover, the writer of the book of It Ends With Us. Did she lie? We're going to discuss what some folks are thinking, and I'm going to play clips out of her own mouth. Also, new Blake Lively claims. As her site says, they should have new claims coming out this week. Well, the clock is ticking. Will we see those? Now, as far as the political news goes, I've got some information coming from our good friend Bernard Sanders. Hey, he doesn't take any corporate money, so even if you disagree with what he has to say, you have to respect that he's not bought and paid for, right? Well, I hear what he has to say, plus some more hypocrisy around the USAID sort of defunding that's going on. If you don't know anything about that story, I'll give you the broad look at it and more emails from you guys, so we'll discuss some of your thoughts on all that. All right, lots to get into, so all this and more coming up next on The Rush. Well, let's open with some health updates. Today's show reporting that there is a new strain of bird flu detected in dairy cattle. What the hell does this mean? Let's have a listen.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture has detected a second bird flu strain in dairy cattle that previously had not been seen in cows. Until now, all 957 bird flu infections among dairy cow herds had been caused by the same strain of the virus. At this point, it's not clear just how long the virus has been circulating in cattle. Experts say it's important for the USDA to contain the outbreak quickly so the strain does not spread to dairy cattle in other states.
What does it mean, contain the outbreak? Are you going to kill these cows? This is a sad story. All right, well, I talked about it on the morning episode. Market price of beef going up, although those are dairy cattle, but I mean, it's all connected somehow, right? I don't know. Does anyone drink milk anymore? All right, I put some heavy cream in my cold brew. All right, here we have it. The question for the Super Bowl. If the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, will Travis Kelce propose on the field to Taylor Swift? Have a listen.
Kansas City Chiefs win this game, should Travis Kelce get on one knee and propose to Taylor Swift after the game?
100%. Yeah, that's a no. That's a no.
It's the perfect moment.
That's the perfect moment. They already got the confetti falling down. Like you got the setup.
It's like
right
out
there.
of a movie script.
It's out of the movie script. There's going to be a ring in a football. He's going to cut it open, have the ring come out. It's a perfect ending.
All right. With respect to their creativity, that ain't how it's going to go down. Listen, I mean, her whole life's been in the public world. You think she wants a public proposal? I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I proposed the way I would bury a body, with no witnesses. I don't want anyone around in case it goes bad. That's how I proposed in the morning. I did it risky. I was on a beach in Thailand. I proposed before my now wife was fed. I don't recommend proposing before your partner is fed. You want them on a full stomach. It lets their guard down. If they're hangry, you never know what they're going to say. Unless you hide the, engagement ring inside like a glazed donut, in which case, if they're, they might swallow the thing. Either way, I don't expect a proposal coming. But it could come. I mean, it could come during the off season. That's a possibility. All right. Well, the NFL is removing end racism from the end zones. They for the last 3 or 4 years, the end zones had end racism. So, all right, I guess, did we solve racism? No, of course not. But let's listen to the reasoning why.
The NFL removing end racism from the end zones at the Super Bowl. Let me explain. On February 4th, officials from the NFL confirmed that they will change the word stenciled into one of the end zones at the Super Bowl for the first time since the tradition began in 2020. Instead of displaying the phrase end racism, the end zones at Caesars Superdome in New Orleans will say choose love and it takes all of us during Super Bowl 59. End zone stenciling began as part of the NFL's Inspire Change program, a social justice initiative that encourages teams to include positive messages on their fields with the goal of reducing barriers to opportunity. The 4 main focus areas of the Inspire Change initiative are education, economic advancement, community police relations, and criminal justice reform. So far this season, NFL teams have displayed a variety of pro-diversity phrases on their fields and uniforms, such as vote, end racism, stop hate, and choose love. While the Philadelphia Eagles had end racism in their end zone, the Kansas City Chiefs had choose love. Choose love is appropriate to use as our country has endured in recent weeks wildfires in Southern California, the terrorist attack here in New Orleans, the plane and helicopter crash.
All right, so it goes on. Yeah, choose love, of course, absolutely. You know, I knew that the culture war was something that we almost couldn't separate ourselves from when Colin Kaepernick took that knee. Do you remember? He takes a knee specifically during the national anthem to protest police brutality. And you know what the other side made it about? That he was disrespecting the military, when in fact he was outwardly saying, no, I'm just protesting police brutality. I'm sick of the brutality that comes from those that think that they have more power and control and they can use their badge. Again, not all police are bad, but the ones that are blah, 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 blah. So he says all of that. And then the response to that was, he's disrespecting the military. And again, and by saying someone's doing something that they're not actually doing, you're silencing their point. And I'm going to get into that more so at the end of this episode. That's not political, that's cultural. People say, oh, no politics. No, it's a cultural, we're talking about the Super Bowl. What do you want from me? All right, let's move it along here. You know, I like to give you guys some new information for your trivia nights. Here's a good question. Why do we know that all of the dinosaurs were killed by an asteroid? Well, here's your answer.
How do we know an asteroid killed the dinosaurs? Well, dinosaurs dominated Earth's terrestrial ecosystems for 165 million years. They were cosmopolitan. You find them on every continent. And then we see this impact layer, this ash, the fallout from the asteroid. And nowhere on Earth has anyone found a single in-place dinosaur fossil 1 centimeter above this layer. We can see that there was a day in history when, poof, they were gone.
You know what's funny is like, and I'm going to piss somebody off, but this is all jokes here. It's kind of like in like 100,000 years, they're going to look at our crust and they're going to see like all of these MAGA hats and they're never going to see a human after that. And they're going to be like, oh boy, what happened? What happened to those MAGA hats? It's just going to be like, they're stuck in the crust. And then after that, it's nothing but, dogs ruling the world. Listen, I wouldn't mind a world where dogs rule. You know what I mean? Just a bunch of dogs running around pissing on fire hydrants, none of us humans to get in the way. If that made you upset, look into your own triggers, all right? Because it's all fun over here. All right, well, we've got several Blake Lively stories to get to. Can you believe it or not? Here's the first one. This is a content creator named Elsrich on Instagram explaining the absurdity that Blake Lively so far hasn't proven any evidence through text messages between her and her partner Ryan Reynolds that she was sexually harassed. Now, why is this interesting? Because she claims to Justin Baldoni, my husband and I talk 24/7, and yet at no point does she have that evidence. It's almost like, by the way, when you look at the dinosaurs' extinction, you look for the evidence of what happened during this time period. Well, during the time period in which she would have been claiming sexual harassment, do we have any proof from her texting Ryan, this guy's a creep, he did this, he did that? Or, maybe she doesn't feel comfortable texting Ryan that. Maybe she could be texting her best friend or SAG reps or, her agent or whoever. Either way, very interesting stuff said here.
So your husband knew you were being SH'd at work and he just sent you off every day without sending a check-in text?
That's suspicious.
The loving Ryan, he must have texted you one time while you were at work to be like, hey, babe. Hi, my love. How is it at work right now? How is Justin? Is he in your space? Is he in your face? Do you feel safe? Do you feel comfortable? Can we get that, Blake? No? Really? I want to know how orchestrated this was, because you had to have told somebody, right? Did you text Taylor and be like, hey, Tay, this man and his head full of hair are here again, and I'm so uncomfortable? No? Okay. Surely you must have texted your mother.
All right, so it goes on, and I love the point. Where is the text messages? And when someone makes an accusation, we should believe people. But then you give space for that accusation to be followed by logical evidence. So that's all people are asking for. You want me to be on your side and understand your opinion, you got to show me something that corroborates it, right? All right, coming up next, we're going to share the Colleen Hoover, lie heard round the world. All right, so we're going to cover Colleen Hoover, the author of the book It Ends With Us, which of course was optioned into the movie, which was directed by Justin Baldoni, ripped away by Blake Lively. She got the final edit of it. She's suing him. He's suing her. He's suing the New York Times. Another PR agent is suing her. There is about $1 billion+ in lawsuits flying around right now. But this is an interesting part where at this moment, as Colleen Hoover and Blake Lively are at Book Bonanza, I shared in the previous video that Blake Lively took the film to share a sort of not finished version of it with an audience of, I think, a couple thousand people. And what was interesting about that is she admits that Sony didn't give her permission to do that. And now we have Colleen Hoover sort of mischaracterizing her relationship with Justin Baldoni. Here she shares that Justin wanted to play the role of Ryle, which is the male lead. And then we're going to look at the evidence that Justin was actually sort of pitched that idea by Colleen Hoover. Have a listen to this.
Let's talk about the guys. You know, what was that casting process like, and what makes Justin the perfect Ryle, and what made Brandon the perfect Atlas?
Oh, that's so hard. They both did so good in their roles. Yeah. When Justin said he wanted to play Ryle, I was on board for that. I thought that he, kind of was what I envisioned when I wrote the book.
So she said, and words are important, when Justin said he wanted to play Ryle. So first, we can just look at this email right here, April 12th, 2019, years earlier, from Colleen to Justin. Have you given any thought to whether you would want an acting role in this? Say maybe Ryle? I could see it. Now, as far as it goes, when this was happening, they had already decided to lay off associating with Justin Baldoni at this point. It wasn't full blown in the audience perspective, but here's what they had to say several months later when all of the sort of information came out. When the New York Times story came out, after the details came out, we get the update that Colleen Hoover was distancing herself from Justin. It Ends With Us is based on the 2016 novel by author Colleen Hoover. In the New York Times story, it's reported that Colleen had her own dissatisfactions with Justin and had become more upset after he told her about Blake's allegations against him, which led to her deciding not to do press alongside Justin for the film. She did make appearances with the rest of the cast. So what could have been said, what promises broken that would lead Colleen Hoover to be anti-Justin Baldoni? Well, in the evidence we have, it's very blurry if you're watching on YouTube, but I'm going to try to read it. This is from one of the first conversations Colleen Hoover had with Justin Baldoni, where she mentioned she had kind of been soft ripped off before by over-promises of other producers. She said, I've sold several film options, and I realize not all of them get made, and I'm okay with that. One of the film options was not a great experience. The producer started a fundraising campaign for the film without my knowledge or permission beforehand, and ended up taking over $100,000 from my readers. The film was never made, my option was never paid, and I ended up pulling the plug on the project, and the producers never refunded readers their money. I felt terrible that my readers were the ones punished, so I mailed out $15,000 worth of free products to those who donated to their campaign. I want to be positive that crowdsourcing is not something that will be done. By the way, this makes Colleen Hoover look good. It shows that she had some naivete in the past and didn't have control over sort of how the film got its money. I totally understand that. The next part. It Ends With Us is important to me, though. I would love more involvement on this film. I've actually been working on a script for it already, along with a producer friend of mine who lives in LA. Her name is Redacted, and she is a very dear friend of mine and is a huge fan and supporter of the book. We sat down for a week and outlined it last month, but I had to put a pause on it because I'm on deadline for this book I'm writing. We're planning on backing it up in 2 weeks. So she goes into the fact that she wants more creative control. It could be that she wanted control, Blake Lively wanted control, and that their vision was just not met with Justin Baldoni's. It really comes down to the contract. While you might want control, there's a difference between writing a book and a movie producing an adaptation of that book.
And then Atlas, we kind of went through several different options, and it wasn't until Brandon was chosen that I was like, he's, definitely Atlas.
Okay, you know what? I'm leaving.
Blake, no, we need you.
So, we can absolutely continue, but let's talk about Atlas some more. I wish you guys could just see, his charisma in person. Like, he is so, oh my God.
All right. And then they bring out the actor who played Atlas, and the crowd goes crazy. So it's I think in the world of adult entertainment, we call this a cuckold. I think that's what it is. So they bring out, because Blake Lively storms off, they bring out the guy who plays Atlas, and then everyone loves this guy. And like Justin Baldoni's like, well, what about me? And there was actually another clip I wanted to share with you. This was a TikTok video from Megan Nicole 87, who was answering a question. What about the other castmates that chose her side? Where are they? Well, here's an answer. Here's Brendan Sklenar.
He was great. I mean, he did a really good
Excuse me, Brandon Sklenar, and he's talking about Justin being great.
job at balancing being both, a lead actor in the film and then being a director and a producer. And honestly, the entire crew that he assembled was just so incredible.
Everybody was, so cooperative on set, and it was such a comfortable environment.
So these are the different people saying that it was a comfortable environment. They loved the set. Everything was great. Again, Brandon Sklenar then gets signed by WME, who is where Justin Baldoni was with. And Justin Baldoni, of course, got fired. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are there. So you just start to wonder, and I hate to sort of like have to leave people without the cold hard facts here, because I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but why is it that all these people rallied together and kind of kept Justin out? And will we get that information? And that's what Brian Friedman wants to find, if he's able to depose anybody. So yeah, that's where they stand with that. Moving forward, we're going to discuss some politics. Before we get into that, I got a comment from somebody. New fan Dave, I'm also a bit triggered by politics normally, but you don't go on and on about it. And you always seem to be very fair and balanced about what you report on, which I really appreciate. Well, thank you so much. I try to see both sides. I made a joke earlier about MAGA. That's going to get me a 1-star review from somebody. You have to understand, I get how politically charged everyone is out there. But rather than dig into our side, how about in good faith, we try to have a conversation about what's best for not just Americans, but humans in general, right? Very, very difficult to talk about this stuff. I'm not paid by any particular lobby group. I'm not paid by any particular side that has any stake in the matter. If anything, I probably would make more money if I didn't talk politics. I've burned many bridges over my political take, but I can do that knowing the great tenet of stand-up comedy is don't be afraid to walk somebody. And walking somebody in a stand-up show means don't be afraid if someone doesn't appreciate what you're saying and they leave. That's going to happen. And we call it crack an egg to make an omelet, which, by the way, is hard to do with the egg prices the way they are, right, Waffle House? So, this isn't a place for everybody. There might be people that want to come to my show because of the new Justin Baldoni story. And then they find out that I'm all for, the middle class. And they go, oh my gosh, no. And they have a completely different opinion. If that's the world you live in, if that's the trigger you have, you need to identify that and live with that, or don't. Maybe you got kids that don't talk to you because you're so triggered by whatever, or maybe parents, or whatever the case may be. I'm over here having the conversation, and I appreciate and respect the people that are all about that. Now, some folks have said, Dave, because you don't have chapters on your YouTube videos, I'm getting triggered by your political talk. I always try to save it for the end, and I always try to give you enough of a notice before we get into it. So let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and do just that, talk a little politic. I've been getting emails from lots of people regarding my commentary over what's going down in Gaza. And to be quite honest, I don't know if everyone who's writing the emails is listening to every one of my episodes, but for a relatively short form podcast that we do twice a day, it's hard to cover the entire story. I continue to say Hamas is a terrorist organization, and I continue to say anti-Semitism is bad, and I continue to say the sort of collateral damage from all the lives lost is not good, and yet people keep writing me saying, there's more nuance to the story. I get it. There's been a war going on for 100 years. My question to people is, why do you think Trump's going to solve that with a couple casinos? Why do they think that? So forget my opinion on the matter. Forget that. Let's listen to Bernie Sanders, a Jewish man who probably has received more political donations from middle class, doesn't take any money from corporate interests. And by the way, Trump received what, $300 million from a family and is, beholden to do something for them. Quid pro quo. We know that exists out there. We know that some of these donations come in to both sides of the political aisle. And what we have to remind our audience is that it's not a left versus right issue. It's an up versus down. It's a top versus bottom. The issue is doing what's right for the American people cannot happen if politicians are taking money from billionaires and big corporate interest groups and lobbyists. Here's Bernie Sanders with his thought that is not bought and paid for by anybody.
You heard the President of the United States talking about turning the Gaza Strip, getting 2 million Palestinians out. As anybody who has read history or the region or been watching for the last year, did you think this was a joke at first?
Look, one could say that, Anderson. On the other hand, given the suffering that the Palestinian people have gone through under Netanyahu's brutal war, which has killed at least 45,000, injured over 100,000, mostly women and children, the idea that the President of the United States is going to say to these people, oh, by the way, you're going to have to leave the place where you live because we are going to build something equivalent to the French Riviera.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And look, I'm going to have people that are going to accuse me of being anti-Semitic, which is ridiculous. You don't even know my history with where I come from, right? So, and I reject that. But in order to have this conversation, we need to hear from the voices of people that have really honest takes. Now, I think I present to my audience an honest take, which is like, look, this doesn't mean the Jewish people are complicit in a genocide. That's not what this means. What this means is they're arguing, like Bernie Sanders here is arguing, like it's gone too far. And some of the, Hamas leadership that they claim, oh, these bombs have killed, haven't even killed them. They haven't even really weakened the Hamas terrorist group. In fact, it's really just emboldened them to continue to recruit. It's kind of like when we fight senseless wars abroad and we kind of say it's because of democracy, when in fact maybe we just want some oil or something. Then people look at us and it actually brings more terrorism and more hatred of our country and more targets onto our back. This is an absolute target on the American back. So again, and for it's just wild out there. It's like we live in a different world. And I think what it comes down to is this. Whether you're conservative or liberal, left, right, whatever, people have different ways of thinking. And I think there's a certain type of person, and I'm not even saying this is political, that responds more to fear and responds more to culture war issues. And that type of person isn't contemplating, what's the logistics of moving 2 million people? In fact, that type of person doesn't understand how rich Elon Musk is, and understanding that Elon Musk donating $300 million to the Trump campaign is akin to him throwing a lawn chair off of the deck of a cruise ship. Like, he's so rich, it doesn't matter. And we think, no, like, billionaires, they earned their wealth. Some people can't even comprehend how much a billionaire is actually worth. This isn't someone who's made a couple $1 million running their corporation. No, this is like so much money and resources and wealth that has been pulled out of the ground. And then what is left for us? We can't even farm that ground because it's been salted and burned. That's what a billionaire is. So when Bernie talks, he talks from a place of like, look, there's enough wealth to go around. It's these billionaires that are bought and paid for. And what does Trump want to get out of turning the Gaza Strip into the French Riviera or the Mayan Riviera, whichever Riviera he talks? It's like, what is in it for him? And there's always, he needs something out of it. That's the way he makes deals. What's in it for him, his family, his brother and his son-in-law, they're developers. And the only take that people seem to have that is defending Trump is that, it's just a negotiation technique. People have died. Thousands of people have died. They have lost their homes. They have lived in brutal conditions. They can't get the health care they need. They can't even get an ambulance or a doctor. They're suffering. This isn't the place for Trump to hold that over their head as a negotiation. I don't believe that's what it is. But even if it is, the collateral damage there, what the rest of the world thinks about us, waving this over people's heads to negotiate a deal.
Well, also the thugs of Hamas are still there. I mean, it's not as if they have gone.
That's right. So, and as you just discussed a moment ago, how do you do that? Are American troops involved? How much money is being spent? But the idea of telling 2.2 million people who live in an area, you're gone, we're going to build the French Riviera here so my billionaire friends can enjoy the beautiful view. It is, to say the least, preposterous.
There it is. It's preposterous. And I wanted to end on one more just piece of hypocrisy. This was shared by the Tennessee Holler here on their TikTok. This is Marco Rubio. And he's kind of now defending the fact that they're getting rid of USAID, which is an organization that helps people abroad. Now, obviously, there's going to be spending issues. It certainly needs to be audited. I think all these organizations need to be audited. I think they're doing all of this auditing, but they're not auditing, the Pentagon, which is where the most money has gone missing. So it's like you gotta audit where all of the money's gone missing. That's what we should be auditing. Either way, this is a clip that was brought back into light, which is Marco Rubio sending a letter to Joe Biden when he was president, asking him to increase the aid budget to counter Chinese influence.
Across his 14-year Senate career, that he was constantly praising and defending foreign aid. Let's listen to just a few of what he said over the years.
Okay. We don't have to give foreign aid. We do so because it furthers our national interest. That's why we give foreign aid.
12
now,
years
obviously,
ago.
there's a component to foreign aid that's humanitarian in scope, and that's important too. I promise you it's going to be a lot harder to recruit someone to anti-Americanism, anti-American terrorism, if the United States of America was the reason why they're even alive today. Anybody who tells you that we can slash foreign aid and that will bring us to balance is lying to you. Foreign aid is less than 1% of our budget. It's just not true.
Now, those comments paint a pretty clear picture, right? He said foreign aid was critical to U.S. foreign policy. Now he's trying to dismantle the agency behind it, but that's really not all.
All right, so there it is. It's just more hypocrisy. It's like, all right, they're all trying to bow the knee, right, bend the knee to, King Trump here. And look, again, I don't care if you're on the left or the right. You should be looking at this critically. If you want a great country, be willing to speak up if you see something that is wrong. Now, folks will say, no, we voted for this. And my response is, did you? Did you really vote for this? Is this what you really wanted? Well, we're in the find out stage, so let's see how it all goes down. Get your popcorn out, folks. All right, well, that's it for me. Lot to get into today. I think we covered a good amount. I'd love to hear your feedback. I can't promise I'll read it all. We're getting inundated with messages as the channel continues to grow. So thank you so much to the 109,000 now on YouTube. We appreciate you. Keep sharing us with your friends if you appreciate my honest attempt to get this all right. All right, we'll be back in the morning. And maybe we'll have bombshell news. We'll have to see. It's all up on Blake Lively if she's ready to share her new claims. We'll be here waiting for that. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And please, if you are on YouTube and if you could consider helping us out on the podcast app, it'll help get us to new audiences. Scan that QR code and leave a nice review. This podcast is twice a day on audio, Spotify, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Stitcher, all the places, Apple Podcasts. If you have an iPhone, you can leave a nice review. We appreciate it. We'll see you in the morning. I'm Dave Neal. This is The Rush.